Now from the top of the backswing down, you will notice how Hogan's right arm starts down and comes in very close to his body right here. The club lays off slightly more starting down. Now as we continue, we can see that club really far behind him right there. The club right now, again, right on plane, perfect. He's in great shape. The club has fallen right into perfect position. Now at this point, coming right into what I call the delivery position, where he's delivering the club from, we can see that Hogan is already off his right heel. You can see this space develop between his left arm and his right elbow. Now that space is going to close very quickly because as Hogan comes into the impact zone, he keeps his right shoulder and his left shoulder both moving in unison to keep that club in front of him. If he didn't, if he kept that position right here and hung on to that a little bit, didn't rotate, he would be too far from the inside out and he would block the golf ball or have to flip his hands over him, then would hit some big hooks. Of course, he did not do that. So coming into this impact zone with the speed of his hips and lower body and the force of his right foot reminds me a lot of what we see with Tiger Woods. One really interesting thing here, you can see the line through his right forearm through the shaft is perfectly straight. That's just a classic position, and he's returned the shaft almost exactly back to its address position. Not many people do that, and that is a beautiful picture right there for all of us to look at and study. Now, just past impact, when Hogan felt that both arms were straight, you can see he's still really pushing off his right foot there. You can see a lot of his left leg. You can see him really covering with his whole upper body as he goes through. There's no stopping at all. Now, coming out, we see the shaft come out underneath his shoulder and above his hip line. Now that's right in that cone area that I talked about earlier. Hogan wanted you to stay underneath the pane of glass. He never wanted the club or your arms to burst through that pane of glass. He didn't mind if you stayed underneath it, but he wanted you to stay underneath the top line here. You can see how closely this parallels the shaft plane line so that we really know that Hogan's swinging this club almost in a perfect circle right around his body. So there's a lot of around in Hogan's golf swing. Now, watch as he goes forward. You can see that right arm maybe just starting to bend right here, coming down into that classic Hogan finish. We can see right here where the club is sort of bisecting his head. You still see just a little bit of curve in Hogan's body, meaning his body is still angled slightly in this way. So you have this picture right there. He's right up on his right toe, facing the target. Absolutely dead perfect classic. If I could use only one word to describe Ben Hogan's downswing, it would be athletic. Ben Hogan had the most athletic golf swing I've ever seen. Hogan said the second section of the swing, from the start of the downswing to the finish, is the most crucial part. This is where everything the player does from the moment he takes the club from the bag either pays off or it doesn't. Now, the change of direction refers to when the club stops going back and starts going down. Ken Venturi talked to me about the change of direction all the time. That is, there is no exact stop and no start. Something is always moving. This is an image of Hogan that was always vivid to Ken Venturi.
So what he did is when he took it back, and he would start his downswing before his backswing was completed. He would get back up there, and then as he set a thing, his body would begin to move, and then the club would set, and was always behind him, never going left.
So at this time, let's look at swing plane and the change of direction. Let's take a look at the pane of glass and the downswing plane. So Adam, if you take that club up to the top, in good shape right there. Now, the really important thing that Hogan talked about in his book was that the downswing plane changed, and that meant that this part of the plane actually kicked out a little bit, out to the right, and angled this board out to the right. and he also said that this would be slightly off the ground. That meant that Hogan felt that the club would come from more behind him. Very important, Adam, to remember it's the club, not the arms. We're not talking about the arms going in behind us. We're simply saying that as we start down, the club actually gets a free ride down because of the hips, and the club will respond by actually falling down a little bit more. By the time you get to waist high down with the golf club, it's back in line here for a square hit. If the club is more behind him, that's an inside-out hit, straight, and if he breaks the pane of glass, that means he'd be coming outside in and across the golf ball, something that nobody wants to be doing. So we'd like to get that club right on line. Now coming into the impact zone, again that club would be back to its address position and way off the Hogan plane, and then through, and for sure going underneath the Hogan plane all the way down and through the impact area. This is a big concept for Hogan. He felt that you could stay either on this pane of glass or underneath it, on that side of it, that you would be in good shape. And it was a huge breakthrough in teaching, and this is still an image that's used by many, many players and many teachers. We're using the shaft plane board now to show the downswing plane. And one weakness of the shaft plane board will show up right now. Go up to the top. When you come back down to halfway down, the club should get back on the plane board right here. Now, one thing that happens with anything fixed is it doesn't really show how the shaft works and falls down. We know that there are two swing planes, the backswing and the downswing plane. Hogan talked about this in detail. And when we use the Hogan plane board, it's a little easier actually to show that. But from here, Adam, if you'll just drop back just a touch so you can go through, what we can show with the shaft plane board that is good is coming back to impact that that club wants to return as close as possible to its angle that it started from. So I think you can see that pretty good right there. Now going through, again, this is very interesting, and most people don't understand this. The club stays back on this plane. Many people are trying to swing the club out down the target line. Adam, take it back there. They try to do that, and they actually come off the plane angle. They're swinging down a line when really you're supposed to be swinging on a circle or on an angled plane. And then a little bit further through, you'd start to come off and up to your finish. But that's why we use the plane board, to try and explain some ideas and concepts to people that otherwise they may not know. Ben Hogan came up with his concept of the swing plane in the year 1938, and he said that was a tremendous breakthrough for him. Once he had the idea of the swing plane, he found that he could swing the club back into a slot time after time. Of course, he practiced it many hours in his hotel room, and it tremendously aided him in going forward to become the great champion that he was. I'd like to conclude this part of the videotape with a drill that I think is the best drill in the Hogan books, and that is the half swing back and forth. It's a drill that was taught to me by my first teacher, Al Mengert. Al learned it from Claude Harmon, who of course spent a great deal of time with Ben Hogan. And it works like this. I did this earlier when we started with the real small swing, but the actual drill that Hogan did was where he kept the arms glued to the sides. He actually said to keep the elbows glued to the sides, but you can have them slightly off. But make sure to keep your upper arms totally connected to your sides. The other thing that's tremendously important about this is that the hands and arms do nothing. They just swing back and through. Now, if you're supple with your wrist joints, the club will break somewhere at this point with no effort on your part. In other words, you don't have to set the golf club. It will naturally happen. So you get the club going back and forth, and with supple hands, you'll have some wrist setting on both sides of your swing and some nice foot action. All the important elements in a full swing are contained within this small golf swing. And then you can hit some golf balls with this little drill. You'll find that you can hit the ball quite a distance with this small swing. You'll feel some pressure off the inside of your foot like Hogan described. This is a drill that will really help all aspects of your move through the impact zone. It will help you make more solid contact, and it will help your swing plane and your swing path. I highly recommend it. This video is for all golfers, perhaps first and foremost the average golfer. If you make the commitments that were suggested in this video, you will improve and produce results. Hogan said that within 6 months, the average golfer that applied themselves should be close to breaking 80. The journey to improve is the greatest pleasure of all.
Jim McLean Golf School and Academies are located throughout the United States. The world-famous Doral Golf Resort and Spa in Miami, the La Quinta Resort and Club at PGA West in California, or the Grand Traverse Resort in Traverse City, Michigan. For more information on how you can improve your game under the tutelage of one of golf's greatest teachers, call 1-800-723-6725.